So we're gonna do a repotting or first bonsai potting on this Japanese white pine. I bought it in Ohio last fall, about August. So the variety is Blue Lou, which if you can come in here and see, a lot of the blue white pines are white pine grafted on black pine stock. So I found one that the grafting site was really clean, and it should look nice in time. It'll blend in nicely. So last year I did a little bit of pruning on some of the whorls of branches that are on here. So that's just about it. It sat over winter, and we're gonna open it up today and see what kind of root system we got on it. I've already prepared this wooden wine box, which is like perfect for this. So hopefully it's a good size. We can give it a little bit of room to grow, but also work it into a shallower environment. So let's see what we can do. I have this stake here as kind of a optional front, but without seeing what the roots really look like, that may change. That's our tree. It's always a cathartic moment to throw that away, get rid of that. And we'll just lay it back here real quick. Get a look. So if you come in here, you can see, like right here, these little white root tips starting to grow. So that's pretty much perfect timing for the trees starting to wake up. The buds have started to swell just a little bit. So this is an ideal time to be doing this kind of work. And also this white fungusy stuff in here, if you see that in your pines, that's just mycelium. That's a sign of good health. Okay, so first things first, I'm gonna try and just take off and tease out all these bottom roots. It doesn't seem that root bound, so I'm gonna be kind of careful that I don't lose the whole thing. We wanna get a lot of this field soil out of here, but also not disturb the root system too much. I know that's kind of a oxymoron there, but this is all coming apart really nicely. Just being careful of the branches here. Don't want to lose them. So as I'm working this bottom, I'm trying to maintain a flat surface. So I'm gonna try and take maybe half of this bottom off. I'm starting to see some more finer roots growing in here. So if I continue to see those, then I can clip these longer roots. But right now I'm not gonna try not to cut a whole lot of anything until we see what we've got. Just a little more. actually way better than I was expecting it to be. A lot of times after they've sat in a pot for a long time, all the roots chase out and circle around the outside perimeter, so on the inner lining of the pot. And as you get down in here towards the center, there's hardly anything. It'll just be a void. So as you're moving through, if you only take off the bottom roots and then you start taking the side roots off, well, you just took off pretty much the whole root system. But if you look in here, I'm still seeing deep in the interior a lot of these finer white root tips, which is a really good sign. I'm gonna hold off on the bottom for now. Just kind of splay these out a little bit. Get them combed out. Now I'm gonna come to the top. And I'm just gonna keep chasing these surface roots. What I'm looking for is if I start to see a point where this flare of the trunk starts going skinnier again, I know I've hit a stopping point. I don't need to go any further than that. Because of course in bonsai we're trying to maintain that nice flare of the trunk. We don't want a inverse taper line of the nabari, or what are the spreading roots at the surface. So right here on this side, I can start to see it's curling back inwards, but there's another fat root right underneath it. So in time, this larger root here might get cut off in favor for one of the roots below it. Anywhere where we have roots that are circling or kind of girdling the trunk, we're going to take that off. It'll just leave a nasty appearance in time. So come off of there. That's actually looking decent. This is why you can go through hundreds of trees in a nursery. I mean, we walked through dozens and dozens of greenhouses, and out of 100 trees, maybe 2 or 3 of them would be suitable for bonsai. And so you're saving yourself a lot of time and heartache by selecting something that's already going to work. And what I mean by that is with a pine especially, the branch placement, not having just whorls of branches going around that are going to make ugly scars in the future. A root system that's already kind of flaring and going to work for you. So happy to see what I'm seeing here. I think that's about as far as I'm going to go on the top surface. Now, we're going to work a little bit on these sides. Here. Start to comb everything out.
Did you make that stake?
Yeah, it's just an old piece of a shinai. Nice strong bamboo. that's what we're left with. Kind of do a dry fit here. Just see, I may take off a little bit more from the bottom. Yeah, so right now I'm about at the level I want to be, but inside the container I'm going to want a good bed of new bonsai soil we're going to put in there. So I'm going to take about another, I don't know, inch and a half off the bottom here. I think I'm going to be able to get away with really not trimming any of these roots, which for a first repot is ideal. I want to, for the health of this tree, I want to kind of bolster as much new root activity as possible. So I may just kind of cleanly trim some of the tips of these roots, but the idea at this point is just to get it in a containerized environment and with good bonsai soil. One more dry fit. I'll go just a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit more off the top, Charles. If you can see all these super fine roots, that's a really good sign. Over the next 2 or 3 years, we're gonna hope that box gets filled with fine roots like that. I got one big old monster root right here. I'll go ahead and trim him. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna set this aside for a moment. And let me grab my wire. So aluminum wire. Aluminum. Okay, that. One more piece. I was thinking. Yeah. So the reason we wire the tree in is obviously to secure it into the box. That way, you know, if the wind blows it over or something, like, you're not gonna have a devastating situation. Also, even the slightest little bit of movement from the wind consistently is not gonna allow roots to grow. That thing's gotta be steadfast. If it's moving, it's not growing. Just trim these down a little bit. And time for soil. Get my soil box here. This is my mix here, so it's equal parts pumice, lava rock, and akadama. So normally I would put like a initial layer of just pumice in the bottom for drainage, but I already used all my pumice and I don't think it's really going to affect anything. I want to utilize as much space out of this container for just good bonsai soil that's going to facilitate that root growth. So start with just a layer in the bottom. Okay, and then once we have our base layer in there, I'm going to start building up a cone right in the middle. Build up a fairly substantial cone, and you'll see why here. That's probably good. Okay, so the cone in the center is so when we set this tree in there, and I'm really gonna mush it and settle it down in there, and that cone is gonna force soil up into this area under the root ball. If you were to just build a flat layer and put it in, you're gonna spend a lot of time packing soil in from the sides, and it's never really gonna get up and underneath. So straight in, and then being careful of the bark here. Take my turntable. Boom. And because I had my bottom flat, that angle looks pretty good. wire. Get this one under that root right there. This guy over. Go ahead and start with just a few wraps there. And then I'll get on this side of you. And then while holding, I'm going to grab it with my pliers. I'm going to pull up and twist. Pull up and twist. One more. Twist. Okay, that's that one. Next one. See, I might have a little pad. So this is just a little aquarium hose. Just cut me a little piece. That way I can pat it over these roots a little bit. Something like that. Rock solid. Just cut the wires down. And start backfilling.
Can you give it a spin real quick so I can see the other wire?
Okay, I'm giving my roots just one little tease out here, make sure everything's kind of oriented properly, nothing severely crisscrossing, and start backfilling. just a little bit more in there, and then we'll start chopsticking. Don't need to go crazy with the chopsticking because I got a fairly decent root ball here and only a few fine feeder roots starting to escape out into the new area, the perimeter of new soil I'm putting in here. So over the course of the year, new roots are gonna just explode into this oxygen-rich environment where the new bonsai soil is going in. And what we're doing here is setting this tree up for the second repot, which will happen in due time. I'm not gonna say, oh, in 2 years I'll take it out and do the repotting. We're gonna wait to see what happens. But what will happen is this new soil I'm putting here will just get absolutely packed with fine, dense roots. This interior, where all the original potting soil is, will kind of be void of roots. So when we lift this thing out the next time, we're gonna go and probe, and basically that old potting soil is just gonna fall out. We won't touch these outer roots, but when we go to repot it a second time, we'll introduce new soil into this interior void, and we'll be fully set up with a brand new root system all around. Little piece of copper wire in there. Alright, now we water it in. We're going to water it very thoroughly to wash all that dust out of the soil. So I'll water it for a couple minutes here and then come back in 20 minutes and do it again. Maybe do it a third time. However, after this initial watering, I'm gonna probably let it dry out more than you would think. Really want all the new roots and, you know, worked roots that we trimmed a little bit. Really want everything to compartmentalize and, you know, start its search for water and oxygen into that new soil instead of just keeping it totally saturated. Alright. I'm gonna come and I've got some chopped up sphagnum moss I'll go ahead and put on the surface. So call that our top dressing. It's just sphagnum moss and green moss like from other bonsai and from the gardens. What that's gonna do is just stabilize the soil surface so hard raindrops kind of get diffused before they wash out some of this soil. But yeah. Okay, so this is my sphagnum moss. I just buy it for like orchids. Basically just chopped up sphagnum moss, and then here I've got different green mosses that I've collected that I think look cool. Two types of moss. You got like running creeping moss, and then you have mounding moss. The mounding stuff is much better. It doesn't try to climb up the trunk of your tree as much. You'll spend less time, you know, dealing with it. But all I do is I come in here and get a couple pieces, and you can basically just trim it into the sphagnum moss. And take some other pieces. And these pieces that I'm trimming off of, they'll grow right back. The spores are already in there, as well as all the little rhizomes, the roots. But nothing crazy. Just trying not to get a whole lot of grit and dirt and stuff in this. So just skim the tops. And some of these pieces I may just break up and kind of place intermittently on the soil surface. It's much different doing it this way, where you're gonna cultivate moss from the surface out instead of just slapping big pieces of moss on there like you do. You know, you find a cool piece of moss in your garden and you want to put it on a tree. It's like, that's fine temporarily, but over time you're just gonna have problems with weeds, and again, all the soil on the underside of the moss is gonna clog your bonsai soil. So with this, we're basically just introducing the spores, and the different types of moss are gonna just naturally kind of grow where they may advantageously in the new soil. So, and it happens pretty quick. And let's see, let's go over to another tree. Let's see if anybody else has something to offer. Oh yeah, this pine here. I'm growing more moss than tree in this one, so we'll go ahead and just Just prune some of this off the surface. This one needs a haircut anyway. Probably beneficial fungi in here too, from one pine to another. Just a little bit more. Okay, that'll work. Just take that. Grind it all up. Kind of just falls apart. You don't have to be too particular with it. These other chunks. Okay, good enough. Give it a little mix. Okay, I'll come over here. Get us a good handful. Just get all over with it. So doing this top dressing, I learned from the Ryan Neal videos. It was really cool to learn like the difference in placing moss on a tree for showing a tree, and that is a completely different art. Whereas with this, you're cultivating moss. When you do a repot, different actions. So why do we want to cultivate moss? One, for the aesthetic purpose, yes, but it's actually serving a function to essentially filter the water going into the container, as well as lock in moisture. So if you just have soil, the top surface of the soil is going to dry out very quickly, and so the bottom portion of the soil that remains moist is where your roots are going to grow. If we have a tree growing in such a small container, we want to maximize the amount of available water and oxygen-rich areas in such a small container. So if we only have, a 3-inch tall container and the whole top inch of it dries out super quick, you're never going to get roots growing in that top section. So by placing top dressing on top of it, you encourage, through capillary action, as soon as you water the tree, you get more moisture at that top inch of soil, and now 100% of your soil column from bottom to top is useful versus only 2/3 of the container. So that's the idea. Okay, that's pretty good. Just press it in. I like to do the initial watering first, then put the moss on, or the top dressing on. And as you squish down on it like this, it kind of starts to soak up like a sponge, and it'll stick better. If you put it right on and then go to water the tree, it's going to kind of fly out and wash out everywhere. But with this, because the soil's already a little moist, that dry moss going on there is trying to soak up that water, and it kind of sucks itself down into the granules. Do just a little bit more on the backside here. Okay, good enough. Hit it another time. Okay. Give it one last turn.